What's going on, YouTube? In this dose, we're going to be reacting to Andrew Wilson on the Fresh and Fit podcast debating Myron Gaines over his prescription that men should sleep with 50 women before they get married. But before we react to it, y'all already know the drill. Like, share, subscribe, turn on your notifications, and share the content with your family, friends, colleagues, and peers so that they can ingest the Q-pill as well. Let's get a dose of this shit. Now, for those of you who are unaware, I'm reacting to this video because, one, I think Myron Gaines' prescription of sleeping with 50 women before you get married is stupid. I think that's foolish. It makes no sense. It's arbitrary. It's not backed by any scientific data. It has no real-world application or positive effects on relationship satisfaction. This is not research. This is not studied, and it's quite that simple. And then the next reason I'm reacting to it is because Andrew Wilson's my guy. I was on the whatever podcast with Andrew Wilson. He's a cool guy. We had conversation behind the scenes, and he actually shouted me out on his platform saying this about me.
You see the gentleman sitting next to Brian. I had the pleasure and the great honor of meeting him. One of the nicest guys I've come across in a long time. One of the nicest guys, also highly intelligent. And I had a couple of great conversations with him off the air, and he was just really down to earth. He also has great content. I'll ask Brian what his name is again. I've mentioned him before, on stream, but super nice guy this guy is. Yeah, that's right, Q. He's a real sharp guy. He's a sharp kid. He was also, you could tell a lot about a guy, too, by how they carry themselves, how they act. He was very well put together, very sharp, very candid, and he was very to the point and concise with his points. He knew exactly what he wanted to say when he wanted to say it. He carried himself really well. So that was, you don't meet that many people, generally speaking, inside of this sphere who impressed me. But within just a few minutes, that guy did. He was, he definitely had his shit together, which I thought was kind of nice to have someone around who did have their shit together.
So yeah, that's what Andrew Wilson had to say about me after meeting me on the whatever podcast on the episode that we did together. Many of you know when he was shaming the big girl, the really fat girl who said she slept with 10 men in one night, and he told her that there was no excuse for her to look like that. That clip went viral because Andrew be going in. But yeah, kind words from Andrew. And yeah, what can I say? The guy is known for debating around YouTube, really good debater. Love how logical he is. He's religious, so a lot of his debates are predicated on his religious values, his core tenets of, being a Orthodox Christian. I believe that's what he is. So a lot of what he says has a lot of validity, especially from the religion paradigm. But yeah, that was what he said about me. Kind acknowledgement. But let's go ahead and react to the video, though, because this was a pretty good debate.
Have sex with 50 women.
Yeah.
Just so I make sure I don't get this position wrong, but I can give you like a counter example of what I'm saying.
Yeah, sure.
Can you lay your position on that out?
Why?
Yeah.
Okay, so we would agree, right, that the dating marketplace has changed.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Women have changed, right? They think they're equal to you, the egalitarian thing that we talked about before. So since the dating marketplace has changed significantly and women have more sexual experience now than ever before because they think they're men and they can have sex and have relationships just like men, etc., and be promiscuous and not deal with the same ramifications. What guys have to do is kind of go in and understand how women operate in today's day and age. And I think a good way to do that, right? Obviously, there's a multitude of ways, but one way to do it is obviously to have experience so that you're not getting into a relationship or a situation with a woman and you're not aware of her nature and you don't know how to deal with it. I like to use the analogy all the time.
Well, I agree with that. The best way to navigate the modern dating pool is to learn how to swim. You need swimming lessons. You got to be taught how to navigate through these women because there's all types of women with all kinds of beliefs and values, and they engage in all kind of pernicious behaviors that aren't conducive to a healthy relationship. So I do agree with that. You need to experience women. However, the disconnect is I don't see where the arbitrary number of sleeping with 50 women would improve that experience, in large part because in order to get better with women, in order to adapt to the way the modern woman thinks, you have to actually spend time with her. You have to have conversations with her. You have to be able to date her, to vet her, to call her out on her bullshit, to see how she thinks, to get in her mind, to understand why she does what she does, why she values the things that she values. And you're not going to actually gauge that from just sleeping with women, in large part because the women that you're typically going to sleep with, if you adhere to this sleep with 50 women prescription, is going to be hoes. You're not going to take the time to want to get to know a hoe. We already know we don't want hoes as men. We already know the way hoes think. We already know where hoes can be found. So we don't have to sleep with a hoe to know that we don't want a hoe. And essentially, if you sleep with 50 women, the large majority of them are going to be hoes. You don't need to sleep with them to know you don't want them.
If you know you got a boxing match, right, in 5 years, right, with a very good and skilled opponent, well, what are you going to do? Are you going to play video games the whole time? Or are you going to train and get ready for the biggest fight of your life, which I look at as marriage? Because
So it makes you worldly. Makes you worldly.
Yes.
Right? And
Yeah.
I think we don't disagree that that's true.
Yeah.
The Christian ethics pushback to this would
Of
be,
course.
but wait, you want this is a requirement or something which is helpful to make you a high value man.
Yeah.
Well, this in turn would give this hoe value.
But I don't determine a guy's high valueness from having sex with a lot of girls. I think a man.
Okay, I get Andrew's point there, because a lot of women do gain value through sleeping with high value men, quote unquote high value men. And y'all know I hate that term, so I'm gonna say high quality men. But women do get value regardless of if they're hoes or not. They still get value because they become the dating interest of these men. Y'all have seen that's how Brittany Renner got famous. Drea got famous. So many of these women have gotten famous from sleeping with guys who are really prestigious, prominent figures in the media, and they simply get famous by sleeping with them. The media puts out gossip or news that they're dating, or they get pregnant. So in essence, it does give these women value, and what it does is it sets the precedent for other women to want to date these kind of men, sleep with them, have their babies. They don't even have to marry them, but these women get attention, and next thing you know, they're putting out books like Brittany Renner about all the men that they've slept with in those high status circles. So Andrew has a point there, but then Myron comes back and said, well, I don't associate a man's status or his value with the fact that he slept with a lot of women. He think they're different, and I agree with Myron on that as well. You don't have to sleep with a lot of women to be high status, because high status is typically your accomplishments outside of dealing with women. It's your contributions to society. It's the rank you hold in your job or your career. It's the amount of people who know you, the amount of people who like you, the amount of people who perceive you to be a good and influential person. That's what makes you a high status male, a high quality male in the eyes of society, and in turn that makes you more attractive to women, because women do what? They acquire their status through the men that they date, which is why Andrew has a point, because women acquire their status through the men that they date, or that they're known to sleep with, or that they have babies by. Myron doesn't get that, though. He doesn't understand that part.
A man being deemed as high status or high value is from his effort and his merit that he develops on his own, and then the women are byproducts.
But he has experience now, and experience is going to help him be high value, right?
I wouldn't attribute him being, because there's guys that are high value that don't get girls.
Wait, that's not what he asked you, Myron. That's not what he asked you. He said he has experience now, and experience is going to make him high value, right? Because Myron himself has said on multiple occasions that in order to be a high value guy, I would say you have to sleep with 50 women. Now, I know what he means by that, but also a man with experience is valued by women. He said on his podcast multiple times, and this is true, women typically want a man who's been with other women because he's going to be more experienced sexually. And if he's more experienced sexually, then that means he's going to be able to provide a better sexual experience for that woman, which is typically going to make that woman want to come back. So a sexually experienced man having slept with multiple women throughout his life, he's going to know how to please women better. And that's more beneficial and satisfactory for the woman, which in turn makes him still more attractive and more high value to the woman because he has that sexual experience.
Like, I wouldn't say, like they're successful, they're smart, they're ambitious, etc. But they don't get girls. Maybe they don't go out enough. Maybe they don't care to.
Oh, right. But
Yeah,
they're more likely to get them if they want them, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, they're in a better position.
Yeah.
They're because it's a byproduct. But my thing is, your value as a man is not attributed to the amount of girls that you have sex with. I just think it allows you to be a better test of character. You're better able to assess the character of women when you've dealt with them before, so that you don't get finessed out of the value that you created.
But wouldn't the entailment of that be that you're high?
And see, that's what I disagree with. Now that's my disagreement with Myron right there. That interpretation that fucking 50 women is going to help you better assess their character. No, it's not. And do you know why? Because men themselves aren't great judges of character when it comes to women. I coach a lot of men as well as women. And even married men or men who have slept around. I had a recent client who, his story, his words, he's very successful. He works in finance. He sleeps around. He has a rotation of about 8 women. And he doesn't know how to get a woman that he actually likes. And this is his dilemma. He no longer wants to sleep around with multiple women at a time. He was dealing with a woman who showed him that women she showed him that there are women out there who are wife material. He said, this woman does everything for me. She puts me on a pedestal. You know, she cleans my house. She cooks for me. She's down to do whatever I want to do. She listens to me. She respects me, etc. And it made me realize that there's those types of women out there. And now I want that, but I have no idea how to find this woman, how to engage this woman, how to treat this woman relative to the women that I've slept with. And he slept with a lot of women. He said sleeping with a lot of women has never been his issue. When he walks places, when he has business meetings, he leaves with a woman that he didn't know. So obviously he knows how to sleep with women, but he doesn't know how to be in a relationship. And this speaks to what I'm saying. This is why I disagree. You're not going to necessarily know how to be in a relationship with a woman once you want a relationship with a woman just from sleeping around with women, because you're sleeping around with them. You're chasing the box. So you learn everything to get the box, but not necessarily how to maintain their interest. You could also fucking suck at having sex, and these women themselves don't want to deal with you anymore. So that is another factor in the equation. But there's this false correlation between, if I have sex with a lot of women, then that's somehow going to better equip me to be in a relationship with a woman. And I'll tell you guys this: what attracts women and what keeps women are different. There's some overlap, but they're different, because you can talk yourself out of sex. You can get on a woman's nerves. The longer y'all like one another, the more you guys come to realize that you're flawed human beings, and there has to be a form of companionate love. You can sleep with a woman off of limerence, off of infatuation, off of those initial stages of attraction, as long as you don't say or do too much. But actually being in a relationship with a woman, and you guys are committed to one another, and you guys are trying to make it work, you want to optimize relationship satisfaction, you want to minimize the problems that you have, you want to be able to love each other through the conflict, that requires a completely different mindset, a completely different skill set when it comes to dealing with women. And sleeping with 50 women is not going to equip you with that skill set. No, that's actually vetting. You have to date those women. You have to vet those women. You have to engage with those women for extended periods of time and actually interact with them as if you guys are in a relationship. You don't have to be exclusive, but I would say it's a much more effective approach to date multiple women simultaneously and actually invest in 1 or 2, maybe 3 of those women that you're dating, to where you're texting on the norm, you hang out whenever you can, you do things, you actually get a feel and a sense for who they are and see how they respond to being with you. See if they're willing to do things that they would normally do, or see if they're willing to not do things that they would do when they're single because they like you. Like, if she party, okay, she'll stop going to parties for you. If she club, she'll stop going to clubs for you. If she doesn't normally cook for a man, but she's cooking for you. If she doesn't give a man a massage, but she gives you a massage. You want to gauge if women have specific behaviors that they engage in specifically with you that they probably wouldn't normally do with guys that they just sleep around with. And you do that by actually putting some time in and actually investing in them a little bit more than just seeing them as a quick fuck. Does it make sense to you guys?
Like the entailment of I have X amount of experience that helps me with my value. Like that's going to be a portion of that, and so kind of the rebuttal that we would have is we would say, okay, maybe
I just don't attribute like a man's sexual experience to him being high value. I think it helps him with assessing
a partner.
Mm-hmm.
But him being high value is completely independent of having sex with a lot of girls. I think the women are a byproduct of his success.
Okay, so he is successful.
Yeah,
it's easier for him to get these chicks.
Yes,
right.
And I think if he's gonna go ahead and partake in women, he should have some experience. Is what I think, gotcha. Especially when he's higher value and he has a lot to lose. But I'm not gonna sit. If I take two guys, right? Mm-hmm. One guy is making, one guy is wildly successful, etc., and another guy's wildly successful. One has a partner count of 1,000, the other one has a partner count of 0. To me, they're still both high value. Just one chose to use his value to attract way more women than the other.
But would you make it a prescription then? Would you tell men you should do this? It's good for you to do this.
I think if you're going to go and be marriage-minded and try to find a girl to take seriously, you should have some experience.
Then that has to add to the value.
If you're going to go and find a girl and get married, then that should add to the experience. Sleeping with 50 women should add to the experience. Now, we all know the marriage statistics. We know when we say, for those of you who understand the nuance of it, men can sleep with multiple women and it doesn't really affect our ability to pair bond. However, it is hedonistic if we sleep with multiple women, and we can get attached to the lifestyle of sleeping with multiple women and find it hard to be exclusive with one woman because we've become so used to sleeping with multiple women. And you know what's another thing? A lot of times, most people don't even know this, but a man's proclivity to be monogamous is determined neurophysiologically by his vasopressin gene. They've found this. The shorter a man's vasopressin gene is, the less vasopressin receptors he has, and the less likely he is to be monogamous, because vasopressin is the hormone that promotes monogamy. It promotes territoriality over women, which is what makes us exclusive with women. If we're territorial over a woman, that means we don't want another man fucking her, and if we don't want another man fucking her, that means we're attached to her. But there's actually a vasopressin gene where the shorter it is, the less likely you are to be monogamous, and the longer it is, the more vasopressin receptor sites you have, the more likely you are to be monogamous. Now, this is something we can't confirm just by looking at a man, or women can confirm by looking at a man. They wouldn't know this, but I will say that if a guy has a short vasopressin gene, then it doesn't matter how many women he do or don't sleep with, he ain't gonna be loyal. He's gonna get caught. His inclination is gonna be to fuck multiple women and just keep fucking women without really ever getting attached. So that's just something to keep in mind on a neurophysiological level. But of course, Myron doesn't know about this kind of stuff because Myron isn't a scientist. Myron is not a psychologist, and Myron just prescribes things based off of what he thinks, which is why I think sleeping with 50 women is an arbitrary and essentially detrimental thing to do if you actually want to be in a marriage. If you want to be in a marriage, you need to vet women. You need to understand how women think. You need to learn what they value. You need to learn what they're going to compromise, if they're going to cooperate, if they're willing to be submissive, and that requires you to actually vet, not sleep with them. It could be a caveat that when Myron says sleep with them, he means date, but he's specifically saying sleep with 50 women. He isn't saying date 50 women. Like, I've slept with more than 50 women, but a lot of the women that I've slept with, I've dated. The majority of women that I've slept with, I've dated. Not on no one night stand type shit, no hit and quit type shit. I lost my virginity at 14, and I'm 31 now. So that's 15 years, 16 years that I've had to sleep with the amount of women that I've slept with, but most of them, the overwhelming majority of them, I've spent additional time with these women outside of us just hooking up in bed. I've went places with these women. These women have stayed over all throughout college. Women sleep in my dorm. I had actual connections with these women. I went places, did things. They bought me things. I bought them things. I was dating multiple women. I was learning women as I slept with them to see who was worth the commitment. Not just sleeping with them just to sleep with them. And I don't actually even know my actual body count. I think that's weird. I can't remember the name of every woman I've slept with. I can remember names and I can remember times, but I never wrote down or recorded my actual body count. This is not documented. So that's another thing. I think that's weird. I got to sleep with 50 women. Okay, that was woman number 1. Okay, that was woman number 2. All right. Hey, women 15. Only 35 more to go. Like, that's weird to me. That's a weird prescription.
So, man.
I don't see how. If you're saying if you want this thing, and this thing is to get married to a high value woman, right? To somebody who you consider to be virtuous and good and this type of thing, right? If you're saying that having sex with a multitude of partners is then going to up your chances of being able to do this thing, to accomplish this thing, then I don't see how it's not attributing to the value.
I completely... a man's value in him having sex, they're independent to me.
He's still saying the same thing because he don't get what Andrew's saying. And this is what I'm saying. Because Myron talks like a robot. Myron, to y'all, Myron is very high IQ and everything that y'all say, whatever. But when it comes down to him having to provide specificity or understand nuances, like analytical thinking, I think he struggles a little bit more in that area. He keeps saying, I just think a man's value and, him sleeping with different women are independent of each other. But what Andrew is saying is you're telling men to do something that's going to inherently increase his value just by virtue of him doing that said thing. It's not complicated. It's not a complicated concept to understand. If you tell a man to make more money, that's going to make him higher value. If you tell a man to get a better car, that's going to make him higher value. You're telling a man to sleep with 50 women to what? Make him be able to discern or increase his ability to discern women who are not good long-term partners from the women who are good long-term partners, which in turn what? Increases his value. That's all Andrew is saying, and Myron is acting like he can't understand or he just doesn't want to concede. He doesn't want to admit that Andrew has a point. And Andrew actually has a point, because you wouldn't tell a man to do something if you didn't think it would inherently increase his value. These guys tell men to do things on the basis of the end game, the outcome. If you do X, this will be Y. Do X, the value will be Y, and Y will be an increased variable. It will be an increased outcome. It should increase your value.
I look at you can be a virgin as a guy and still be a high value dude. Yep. Is how I look at it. I think the women are just a byproduct of your value.
See, he just repeats the same points. He said the same thing 3 times, and he's still not getting what Andrew's saying. Andrew understands what he's saying, but he doesn't get what Andrew is saying. That's not what Andrew's saying. He's still saying the same thing.
Is a prescription that you would make?
If your prescription as far as the 50 girls.
Yeah.
Yes, but you can be high value and not take that prescription.
Right, but you must see some value then in prescribing it.
More, and the value is from protecting your value. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah, he just said you must see some value in He just said you must see some value in prescribing it. That was his whole point. And Myron goes, yeah, and the value is protecting your value. Bro, that still makes you more valuable. Even if you're protecting your own value, that I just said, do X, the outcome is Y. Regardless of what it is, regardless of how he wants to frame it, he's still increasing a man's value by telling him to do this. If you do this, You're doing this to increase your own value. That is what he's saying. Why is it so complicated? Why is it so complicated for him to understand the fact that you're telling men to do this? You're telling them to do this because it has some benefit on the other end. And he just admitted it. He just admitted that's literally what Andrew has been saying the entire time. In order to prescribe it, you must think it's going to be useful once it's applied. Yes? I don't think so, man. I keep them separate. In order to prescribe it, you must see some value in it once it's applied, right? I just think men and women, I just think man's value isn't determined by how many women he sleeps with. I think he can be a virgin and still be high status. In order to prescribe it, you must see some value in what the outcome of applying it will be, right? The value in it is he's protecting his value. Well, yeah, that's what I've been asking you the entire time. Why prescribe it if you see no value in it?
That totally makes sense.
The value is you protecting your value, but you don't need the women for that value.
Right, but I think that here's the entailment.
Yeah, sure.
So if you're prescribing, have sex with 50 women, okay, this is your prescription and the prescription has value. Then whatever the hoes are that they're sleeping with, that's an entailment. So the hoe has to have value.
Not necessarily.
Well, you could call them like pawns.
I mean, they would be necessary for you to sleep with 50 women, right? Right?
I mean, if you can get by, right, with less, sure. But I think a decent barometer is 50 in today's day and age, because it will put you in a position where you'll experience a multitude of different girls with different personality types, different behaviors, different red flags, different green flags, etc.
No, it won't. That's where he's wrong. No, it won't. If you sleep with 50 women and the goal is to sleep with 50 women, you're gonna sleep with women who are similar. You're gonna sleep with women who are disagreeable, who are high in sociosexuality, who are neurotic, and who are low in conscientiousness. Those four personality traits are going to be prevalent in the large majority of these 50 women that you sleep with, because they're engaging in sex with you outside of a relationship, which indicates high on the sociosexuality scale and low in conscientiousness. Then, if they are high on the sociosexuality scale, they're low in agreeableness because they want to do what they want to do. And you can best believe that they're highly neurotic, because most promiscuous women have mental health issues. And a lot of those mental health issues have to do with being greatly affected by the negative experiences that they've had, and probably some form of sexual abuse in the past, sexual assault, and all of these things that manifest themselves in these promiscuous women that have gone on in the past. Not to mention, these women are more likely to have STIs because they sleep around. And we know motherfuckers have no dick discipline at all. A lot of these guys, they sleep with whores, and they sleep with these whores without condoms and get these whores pregnant. So you'll probably be a pop before you even get to 50 women. You'll end up like Jalen Green. You'll end up like Zion Williamson. You'll end up like Paul George. You'll end up like Drake. Y'all going to impregnate one of these whores by sleeping around because y'all don't have no dick discipline from the start anyway. Y'all aren't approaching this experientially. Men aren't going to approach this experientially like I just explained. Oh yeah, I got to go out and make sure I sleep with 50 women before I get married. So let me go ahead and start this journey right now. Let me go ahead and start these sexual conquests right now. And once I'll do it the same way, systematically every time. I'll make sure I wrap it up. I'll make sure I ask her when she's ovulating. I'll make sure I don't get attached. I'll make all these variables that are unaccounted for that are not going to happen, because men operate on emotion too. Attraction makes men irrational. Attraction is the reason that men go into women with no fucking condom. Do y'all not understand that? Attraction is the reason that men end up getting women that they don't want to be with pregnant and then have to pay for an abortion, like what's his name for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Fuck, what's the player name? The shooting guard. Shit. Anthony Edwards. Then you sending $100K for her abortion. Here, take this $100K and go get an abortion. Men don't have the dick discipline to just sleep with 50 women that they find attractive enough to sleep with, that they done met at a party or a club, and not wrap it up or not catch a STI or not be caught up in a situation to where she got pregnant, she ain't aborting the baby, and now you on child support. Now and that just fucked up any hopes that you had of sleeping with 50 women just so you could get married. Like, this is what I'm saying. The problem with logic is humans are compelled by their desires. We are not logical creatures. Attraction is not a logical process. We make all kinds of mistakes when it comes to sex and who we get involved with simply because we're attracted to that person. You're not going to out logic desire. Logic does not override desire. Without desire, you're not even inclined to do anything logical. Do you guys understand that? Without desire, you have no inclination to do anything. Desire is the driving force for behind why you even do every single thing you do. We're not robots. The emotional parts of the brain evolved and developed long before the prefrontal cortex ever did. Logical thinking and reasoning is the last part of the brain that develops. We didn't never think about the ramifications of having sex. We just had sex. And we still operate like that. When you see a woman and she's attractive enough for you to want to sleep with her, she's either going to be very attractive to the point to where you like fuck a condom, or it's going to be the bar effect. You was in the club too long, you went there to hit something, and that 4 over there, she looking like an 8 right now. But if you drunk, if you intoxicated, shit, you still might slide in her without a condom. Next thing you know, you got a fat ugly bitch pregnant. You got the worst woman in the friend group pregnant. And she don't want to get an abortion because you as a high value man made a mistake of fucking a fat ugly bitch. When we sit down, when these podcasts sit down and have these discussions are way too logical. They're not actually applicable in reality because they're not going to go the way that they're explained. Too many emotional variables in these equations. Humans are too emotional. The human brain is wired to be emotional. The human brain is wired to react to desire, to act on desire and on impulse. You have to be a really, really, really tedious, calculated, computational type man to even carry out something like this. And oftentimes, those men are not desirable to women. They don't know how to talk a woman's panties off. They don't know how to make a woman laugh. They don't know what women find interesting. So they can't even get pussy to begin with because they aren't interesting enough for a woman to want to give them some pussy. Too many variables, too many emotional variables in the equation for these conversations to actually have real world application. And again, that's another reason why I say sleeping with 50 women is arbitrary, unsubstantiated, and stupid. Makes no sense.
I have a general rubric of like, okay, these girls that go to the club all the time probably aren't good. I've dealt with like 3 of them now. Okay, these girls that are from a sorority and yeah, maybe not so good. So like you kind of have an idea of like, all right, this is, you get a generality of things.
Well, so
you're not going to get a general, man. I get what he's saying, and he's not wrong, but you don't need to go to a club to know the women at the club are whores. You don't need to sleep with 3 of them from the club to know that they're whores. You can go in a club full of women or look at sorority girls and the way that they act and the way they behave, how they just kiss random guys on dares and all kind of shit and be like, nah, I don't want that kind of woman. It's not the kind of woman I want. this is not rocket science. This is not necessary. This is not required for you to understand what you want in women. It's just not.
To like the olive branch,
Yeah.
the meeting you halfway. I would not say for a second that the more sexual experience you have and the more worldly you are, that you're not going to have experience in dealing with worldly women. There's no doubt. Or women who aren't worldly. You're still going to have experience in both. All I'm saying is that I think it's a logical entailment to say, I'm going to prescribe that you go sleep with, let's just say it's 20, right? It doesn't even have to be 50,
Okay.
15, 10, 5. It doesn't matter. You and I both know the types of women those guys are going to be sleeping with are going to be easy women, and they're going to be low value women. They're basically going to be hoes. So if that's the case, that the hoes are who they're going to be sleeping with, then we have now entailed that hoes have to have value, or else you couldn't sleep with them.
I think it's kind of a.
I mean, I think all women have inherent value, though, even hoes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, though. You're saying they're valuable.
Because like all females have some type of value because they're women. But as far
Yeah, if she's a hoe, she has to be good enough. She has to be really, really attractive for you to know she's a hoe and still want to sleep with her. A woman has to be really, really attractive for you to know that she's a hoe and you still want to smash. Because you're willing to risk getting an STI or getting that woman pregnant. So the fact that you're willing to risk that means that her sex appeal overrides your logicality, which means she has to be really, really attractive. There's a lot of niggas who will still go in Brittany Renner unprotected. There's a lot of niggas who will still go in porn stars unprotected. There's a lot of niggas who will go in strippers unprotected. Because to them, that's how bad they are. They're still baddies. Same thing with these OnlyFans thoughts and IG models. They ain't becoming six-figure earners off of their girlfriends. They're becoming that off of men who find them attractive and men who would still sleep with them despite the fact that they're whores. And what's a woman value lie in? Her beauty. So an attractive whore is still extremely valuable because she's attractive.
as like attributing that value to yourself and taking her serious, I think that's a different thing. So you got to figure out which ones are, worth a relationship and which ones aren't. And I think the way to do that is through obviously
Now,
experiencing
from our view, from the Christian ethicist view,
Sure.
they have no
You don't
value.
have to sleep with 50
They
women
only
to
have
know that.
human value.
Okay.
But they do not have, I would consider them at the lowest end of the
If they're not virgins, like what
of the value hierarchy. Women who are very promiscuous and they
Okay.
see sex as a tool or as a utility or as a manipulation device or things like this. Instantly, the Christian ethicist is going to look at this and say, "This is completely sinful. Needs to stop. You're totally valueless."
Yeah, fair.
Right. Your humanity is still very valuable. You
Of
as
course.
a person still very valuable. Your salvation is really important to us.
Yeah.
But this type of sinful behavior from our perspective is completely degrading to society, and we need to stop it by almost any means necessary, because what ends up happening, it's like an enclosed system. What ends up happening from my perspective is that degeneracy leads to degeneracy, leads to degeneracy, leads to degeneracy.
That's
Okay.
true.
I mean, who
Yeah.
would ever have envisioned
Yeah.
that this would be the world we live in?
Yeah, it's crazy.
But if you back it up,
Yeah,
if
it's
you
crazy.
look at kind of the slippery slope argument, quote unquote, that started with an LGBTQ push for equality, and once they have it, you have nothing else to complain about. You have to move the goalpost to the next victim group.
Yeah.
Then you have to move the goalpost to the next victim group.
Yeah.
And it becomes more and more and more absurd. And that's why you'll see the pendulum eventually is going to swing back the other way by necessity.
If I may, we're not.
I agree. I agree. I mean, he didn't say anything wrong. I don't have a religious perspective on this, though. I believe in God, but I'm not super religious. But I look at it as a scientific approach. I look at the scientific I look at the scientific implication. What is it going to result in? How actually does this work? How is this applicable? What are the variables in this equation that factor into if this would be a meaningful prescription, if this would be a useful prescription, a significant prescription in the outcome that Myron is prescribing it in order to achieve. And I got nothing. There's nothing. If one of you can show me where there has been some research done on sleeping with 50 women and that has somehow optimized a man's ability to relate to women, to perform better with women, to have a better marriage, higher marriage satisfaction, optimized marriage satisfaction, marriage longevity, I'll pay you. If there's anybody who can find any research, because I'm telling you it doesn't exist. I have 500 for anybody who can find any research saying that sleeping with 50 women optimizes relationship or marriage satisfaction, stability, and longevity. 500 for anyone who can bring me this study, who can bring me this research, peer-reviewed, replicated. You won't even find one initial study. I guarantee you won't.
arguing on a, I want to say, religious standpoint. It's more of a logical standpoint.
Sure. Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
Let's be honest here. You yourself, if you weren't versed in women, you can choose for yourself the wife you have today, right?
Yeah, that's
Your girl.
true.
So on some level, we do need to have women as, I won't say pawns. I said pawns earlier. That's kind of wrong. I would say as, I want to say, an experience booster to understand what I really want in my life or what I actually need. So I think on some level, you still need to have that like experience as a man. I think.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see your
of
Christian viewpoint on and I think all religions pretty much have, whether it's Islam, Judaism, Christianity, they're all pretty much, hey, like sexual degeneracy. It's not in our best interest here from a religious standpoint, which I completely understand. That's why I'm when I dispense this advice, it's more from a it's a strategic standpoint of, okay,
Still
if you're not a
arbitrary.
religious guy, etc., right?
Still
Most
arbitrary.
women are not religious, right? They're just not, unfortunately. Most people are secular in today's day and age. So I look at it like, okay,
Even the religious.
Huh?
Even the religious are
yeah,
more secular.
there you go, exactly. So like, so my thing, I look at it like, okay, though religion is great, and I think it's a great framework for people to operate in, unfortunately, we don't have those like training wheels anymore. So I think like for guys to really like move in this new sexual marketplace where, like you said before, these girls a lot of the times are fucking 304s. How's a guy that's been a virgin his whole life, super devout, has the rose-colored glasses on, doesn't know how women really move in today's day and age, how's he going to be able to tell if a girl really likes him or she's just selling him a dream, like, oh, I'm pure, etc.? Like, he won't know. Right now, of course, thank God there's content like this,
Right,
where we might be able to curb him having 50 bodies, and he might be able to only do 20, 30, 40. He might not need the full 50 because we're telling him, hey, this is what it is, right? They always say a smart person learns from their mistakes, a wise person learns from another person's mistakes.
Yeah.
Hell, on this show, we tell you guys our mistakes all the time. So people maybe are, with all this information, they're able to curb it, right? And learn from an earlier standpoint. But a lot of guys, what I've noticed is, a lot of guys are stupid. Let's just keep it 1,000. They gotta fucking burn their hand on the kitchen stove
Yeah,
to
they
figure
are.
out that
Guys
it's
are stupid.
actually hot. And that's why the information is usual. It's like for the general masses. Are there smart guys out there that will figure this shit out with less? Of course. But I think for most guys, especially those hard-headed guys, with 50 chicks under your belt, man, you should at least be able to figure out the girls that are worth a relationship versus the ones aren't. And then most importantly, the girls that are trying to sell you a dream of, oh, I'm pure, etc. And you find out that they're 304.
So that was the full clip. That was the extent that the debate went. I don't disagree with the sentiment at all. I don't disagree with the sentiment that, as I said, in order to navigate the dating pool, you got to dive in. You got to learn how to swim. Got to jump in the deep end. I agree. You need to have experience with women. This is common sense. But understand, applying too much logic to situations in dating and attraction is not going to be as effective as we think it will be on the surface, because as I said, dating, fucking, relationships, marriage in the West especially are all emotionally driven acts. There are things that you cannot account for, and you're just ultimately going to end up having negative experiences learning women regardless. But the number 50 is extremely arbitrary. And as Myron just said at the end, by the time you slept with 50 women, you should at least. So it's a ought to statement. It's a ought to prescription. It's based on the fact that 50 sounds like a good number intuitively. That's what it is. He's used 50 as an intuitive arbitrary number, an arbitrary marker that should be a sufficient enough body count for you to be able to discern which women are relationship material, marriage material, and which women are quick fucks. But as I said, the disconnect is that also has to do with a guy's initial level of discernment. If you sleep with 50 women, you're most likely, if you're not actually looking to invest in these women, going to be sleeping with hoes. And a lot of times, who men sleep with is a reflection of what they value and who they are. So if you sleep with multiple hoes, you sleeping with 304s, OnlyFans, porn stars, strippers, women in the club, in the parking lot, from women that you took back to the crib from the club. If you just screwing anything, and these women have very promiscuous natures, very promiscuous proclivities, very promiscuous attitudes and tendencies, that's what you're going to get used to. That's what you're going to get used to. Especially if you're telling this to guys who have no dating experience. That's what's going to construct their idea of the type of woman that they're often involved with. They aren't going to be able to just get around a woman who's relationship material and be able to just become a guy who's also the type of guy who's ready to be in a relationship. This is unlikely. And most high value men, most men want to be married. Let's just put that out there. Most men want to be married, and most high value men are already married. The majority of men who are in the upper levels on the socioeconomic ladder are married. The majority of them. So these ones that's single and living the lifestyle and just running through women, that's what they want to do. They may still have some minuscule desire to be married at some point, but chances are they won't ever end up married because they've gotten so used to the lifestyle that they're used to, and they've seen so many women who aren't worth commitment that becomes their perspective. That becomes the heuristic in their mind. You've seen so many women who aren't worth commitment that in general you believe women aren't worth commitment. And if you believe that in general, because that becomes the fundamental tenet at your core intrinsically, then you've already compromised your ability to discern the difference between women who are worth commitment and women who aren't. That was my reaction. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll catch you guys on the next dosage of Q-Pill. Over and out.